Pause for a moment, because this, right here, is not random. This is not just another video, not just another message scrolling past your screen, not something you happen to click on out of boredom or curiosity. No, something deeper is happening. Something intentional. Something spiritual. Because out of all the things you could be doing right now, out of all the distractions pulling at your attention, you landed here. And that matters. There is a reason your eyes didn't skip this. A reason your spirit felt a pull, even if you couldn't explain it. A reason you felt that subtle nudge, that quiet whisper saying, wait. Don't scroll. This is for you. Because today, July 10th, is not an ordinary day. And what you're about to hear may be the very thing the enemy hoped you would miss. You've probably felt it already, haven't you? That strange heaviness in your mind. That unusual restlessness. The way your focus keeps slipping, like you can't quite stay grounded in what truly matters. You pick up your phone for one reason and suddenly you're somewhere else, doing something else, thinking something else entirely. Minutes turn into hours. Purpose turns into passivity. And you don't even realize when it happened. That's not sluchikaki. That's not just one of those days. That is distraction. Strategic. Precise. Time. Because the enemy doesn't always attack you with chaos. Sometimes he simply keeps you occupied, busy, entertained, overwhelmed, scattered. Because if he can't destroy your purpose, he will distract you from it. And today, more than usual, there is something he does not want you to see, something he does not want you to hear, something he does not want you to step into. That's why this moment feels different. That's why this message feels heavier. Because heaven is interrupting your routine. Yes, interrupting. This is a divine interruption. A sacred pause in the middle of your normal day to pull you out of autopilot, to shake you gently awake, to realign your focus before something important slips past you unnoticed. And if you're honest, you've been drifting a little lately. Not completely lost, not completely disconnected, but just enough. Just enough to delay something. Just enough to miss signs. Just enough to feel like you're moving but not progressing. And the dangerous part, it feels normal. It feels harmless. It feels like life. But Archangel Michael is stepping forward right now. Not with fear, but with clarity. And he is saying, this is not just a day. This is a doorway. A doorway into alignment. A doorway into awareness. A doorway into something that was meant to reach you, but only if you are present enough to receive it. And that's why you're here. Because your spirit recognized something your mind hasn't fully caught up to yet. Something is shifting. Something is trying to get your attention. Something is trying to reach you before the noise of the world pulls you back under. And you have a choice in this moment. To keep scrolling or to lean in. To treat this like just another video or to recognize this as a signal. Because what happens next depends on what you do with this interruption. Stay with this. Don't rush past it. Don't minimize it. Because if you were meant to ignore this, you wouldn't be here. You were led here. You were positioned here. You were called into this exact moment, on this exact day, for a reason that is about to unfold. And what you're about to understand next will change the way you see this entire day. This is only the beginning. Type I am alert in the comments if you feel this message is for you. Blessing code 1010 is now activated. There are days and then there are moments. Moments that don't announce themselves loudly. Moments that don't arrive with visible signs or dramatic warnings. They come quietly, almost disguised as ordinary time. But in the spiritual realm, they are anything but ordinary. And July 10th, This exact day you are standing in right now is one of those moments. You may wake up thinking it's just another date on the calendar, another routine cycle, another set of hours to pass through. But what you cannot see with your natural eyes, heaven has already marked. This day has weight. This day carries timing. This day holds an opening that does not remain available forever. And that is why there is urgency surrounding you right now. Not panic, not fear, but urgency. Because something is being released today that requires your awareness to receive it. You see, spiritual timing does not operate the way human timing does. It does not wait for your convenience. It does not adjust itself around your distractions. When heaven opens a window, it opens with precision, and it expects alignment, not delay. And today, July 10th, is one of those windows. There is a shift hovering close to your life right now. You may not fully understand it yet. You may not be able to define it, but you can feel it. There is a subtle tension in the air, like something is about to happen, like something is pressing against the surface of your reality, waiting for the right moment to break through. That feeling is not your imagination. That is spiritual movement. And here is what you must understand. Whenever there is divine movement, there is also opposition. The enemy does not fear your past. He does not fear your struggles. He does not fear what you have already been through. What he fears is your alignment with what is being released right now. Because today is not just about what is happening around you. It is about what is trying to reach you. There is an assignment connected to this day, a release tied to your awareness, a redirection that could shift your path in ways you cannot yet see. But here is the condition. This is what makes today different from every other day you've casually moved through. You must be present to receive it. And that is exactly why distraction has increased. Notice it. Pay attention to it. Today feels noisier than usual. Your attention feels pulled in multiple directions. Your focus feels fragile. Even small things seem to demand more of your energy than they should. That is not slujadikaki. That is resistance. Because the enemy understands something many people overlook. He doesn't need to block your blessing if he can simply keep you unaware of it. He doesn't need to close the door if he can distract you long enough to walk past it. And today there is a door that may not look obvious, a door that may not come with an announcement. It may come through a thought you almost ignore, a moment of clarity you nearly dismiss, an opportunity that seems small at first, a decision that feels simple but carries deeper consequences. And if you are not alert, you will treat it like everything else. You will overlook what was meant to redirect you. You will delay what was meant to advance you. You will scroll past what was meant to waken you. This is why the urgency matters. Because not every moment repeats itself. Some moments pass and they do not return in the same form. July 10th is not just another chance. It is a specific alignment of timing, awareness, and opportunity. And whether you step into it or step past it depends on how you respond right now. Archangel Michael stands in this moment, not to create fear, but to sharpen your awareness. And his message is clear. Do not treat this day lightly. Because something is being positioned. Something is being revealed. Something is being shifted in ways that will only make sense after you move through it. But if you are distracted, you will miss the beginning of what you later pray for. Let that settle in your spirit. How many times have you asked for clarity while ignoring the quiet moments where clarity was trying to speak? How many times have you asked for direction while being too distracted to recognize when direction appeared? How many times have you prayed for change while staying mentally absent when change was unfolding? This is that moment again. But this time, you are being warned. This time, you are being awakened before it passes. This time, you are being pulled into awareness before distraction takes over. July 10th is not about pressure. It is about positioning. Positioning your mind. Positioning your focus. Positioning your spirit to recognize what is trying to enter your life today. And if you stay present, if you stay grounded, if you stay alert, you will not miss it. You will recognize it. You will step into it. And what begins today will not feel random when you look back. It will feel intentional. It will feel guided. It will feel like a moment that was waiting for you to finally be ready. Stay here. Stay aware. Because what comes next will expose exactly how the distraction is being used against you. Type "I will not miss this" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 2020 is now activated. Now listen carefully, because this is where everything begins to make sense. Up until this moment, you may have felt the pressure, the restlessness, the scattered thoughts, but you may not have fully understood why it's happening. You may have brushed it off as stress, as routine, as just another busy day pulling your attention in different directions. But this is not random. This is strategy. The enemy does not operate carelessly. He does not waste energy on meaningless attacks. Everything is calculated. Everything is timed. Everything is designed with one purpose in mind: to keep you from stepping into what God is doing in your life. And today his strategy is not destruction. It is distraction. Because distraction is subtle. Distraction does not announce itself as danger. It feels harmless. It feels normal. It feels like something you can manage. But what you don't realize is that while you are managing it, it is quietly managing you. It is redirecting your focus. It is draining your energy. It is delaying your response to what truly matters. And the most dangerous part is this: you don't feel like you're under attack. You feel like you're just living your life. That is how effective this strategy is. Think about your day so far. Think about how many times your attention has been pulled away from something important. Think about how many times you started something with intention but ended up somewhere completely different. You open your phone for one reason and suddenly you're scrolling through things you didn't even plan to see. You sit down to focus and your mind begins to wander. You try to be present, but something always interrupts. Message. Notification. A thought. A noise. Over and over again. And slowly, without realizing it, your clarity begins to fade. Your awareness begins to weaken. Your sense of direction begins to blur. That is not slujikaki. That is design. Because the enemy knows something powerful about you that you may not fully recognize yet. When you are focused, you are dangerous. When you are clear, you move differently. When you are aligned, you make decisions that shift your life. So instead of confronting you directly, he surrounds you with noise. Noise that keeps you busy but unproductive. Noise that keeps you moving but not progressing. Noise that fills your mind but empties your spirit. And the longer you stay in that noise, the easier it becomes to miss what actually matters. This is how opportunities are lost. This is how clarity is delayed. This is how purpose gets postponed, not because it wasn't available, but because it was never fully seen. And today, more than any other day, that is exactly what he is trying to do. He is not trying to stop the blessing. He is trying to keep you too distracted to recognize it. He is not trying to close the door. He is trying to make sure you never notice it was open. That is why everything feels intensified today. That is why your focus feels under pressure. That is why your attention feels scattered. Because there is something valuable connected to this moment, and distraction is being used to keep you from it. But here is what shifts everything. Awareness. The moment you become aware of the strategy, it loses its power over you. The moment you recognize the pattern, you can step out of it. The moment you see distraction for what it is, you stop entertaining it as something harmless. And that is what is happening right now. You are being pulled out of unconscious distraction into conscious awareness. You are beginning to see what has been happening around you and within you. And that changes everything. Because now you have a choice. You can continue moving through this day the way you started it, reactive, distracted, pulled in every direction, or you can shift. You can slow down. You can reclaim your focus. You can become intentional about where your attention goes. Because your attention is your power. Where you place it determines what grows in your life. And today it matters more than usual. Archangel Michael is not warning you to create fear. He is revealing strategy so you can rise above it. So you can move differently. So you can see clearly. So you can step into what is being released without missing it. And the truth is, you are not powerless in this. You are not at the mercy of distraction. You are not stuck in this pattern. You simply needed to see it. Now that you see it, you can break it. Now that you understand it, you can rise above it. Now that you are aware, you can take control of this moment instead of letting it control you. And what you do next will determine how this day unfolds for you. Because the strategy has been revealed. The question now is, will you act on it? Stay with this. Because what comes next will show you exactly how distraction has already been affecting your destiny without you realizing it. Type ISE the strategy in the comments if you are becoming aware. Blessing code 3030 is now activated. As this truth settles into your spirit, understand this: every moment of awareness you receive is not just for you. It is meant to reach someone else still lost in the noise. When you choose to support this message through Super Thanks or the PayPal link in the description, you are not giving to a video. You are sowing light into lives that are still trapped in distraction. The word declares, those who sow in righteousness will reap a harvest of unfailing love, and right now, that promise is calling your name. I feel it strongly. This is your moment to act, not later, not someday, but now, while your spirit is stirred. Your seed becomes a voice, a fire, a signal that reaches someone on the edge of missing their breakthrough. As you give, heaven marks your obedience and releases increase in ways you cannot yet see. Step into this moment with intention. Follow the leading in your heart. Activate your giving now and become part of what God is doing through this message. There is something even more dangerous than distraction itself, and it's what distraction slowly creates over time. It's called drift. Not a sudden fall. Not a dramatic collapse. Not something you immediately notice. But a quiet, gradual shift away from where you are meant to be. A slow movement off course that feels so small in the moment you don't even recognize it's happening. That is how destiny is not destroyed but delayed. Because most people expect loss to come loudly. They expect something obvious. Something they can point to and say, that's where everything went wrong. But that's not how it works. The most impactful losses happen silently, through small, repeated moments of misalignment. A missed thought, a delayed decision, an ignored nudge, a moment of awareness that gets brushed aside. Over time, these moments begin to stack. And what started as a small distraction becomes a pattern. What started as a pattern becomes a habit. And what becomes a habit eventually shapes your direction. This is the silent drift. You don't wake up one day and decide to move away from your purpose. You don't consciously choose to delay your own growth. It happens subtly, gradually, almost invisibly. And before you realize it, You are no longer where you were meant to be, not because you failed, but because you drifted. And today that is exactly what is being confronted. Because July 10th is not just about urgency. It is about correction. A moment where heaven interrupts the drift before it takes you too far. If you are honest with yourself, you have felt this before. That sense that you are moving but not moving forward. That feeling that you are doing things that not the things that truly matter. That quiet awareness that something is slightly off even if everything looks fine on the outside. That is drift. It doesn't feel like failure. It feels like just getting through the day. It feels like I'll handle it later. It feels like this isn't a big deal right now. But the truth is, every moment you delay alignment, you strengthen misalignment. Every time you ignore clarity, you reinforce confusion. Every time you choose distraction over direction, you move further from what was meant for you. And the enemy relies on this. He does not need to push you far off course. He only needs to move you slightly consistently. Because over time, a small shift becomes a completely different destination. That is why this moment matters so much. Because you are being given awareness before the drift becomes distance. Before delay becomes regret. Before missed moments become missed opportunities. And here is what makes this even more real. You cannot always feel the consequences of drift immediately. Sometimes the impact shows up later. Later, when you look back and realize you missed something that could have changed everything. Later, when you see how one small moment of awareness could have shifted your entire direction. Later, when you recognize that what you were praying for was already in front of you at one point, but you were too distracted to see it. That is the cost of drift. Not because the opportunity wasn't there, but because your attention wasn't aligned when it appeared. And today that pattern is being interrupted. You are being pulled out of autopilot. You are being awakened to your own patterns. You are being shown where your attention has been going and what it has been costing you. Not to make you feel guilty, not to create fear, but to give you the power to change it. Because the moment you become aware of drift, you can correct it. The moment you recognize misalignment, you can realign. The moment you see where your attention has been leaking, you can reclaim it. And that is what this moment is about. Reclaiming your direction. Reclaiming your focus. Reclaiming your awareness before anything more is lost. Archangel Michael is not speaking to you because you are off track beyond repair. He is speaking because you are still close enough to realign quickly. Still close enough to shift direction without losing what is ahead of you. Still close enough to recognize the moment and respond to it. But this requires something from you. You cannot continue moving the same way. You cannot keep treating your attention as something casual. You cannot keep postponing clarity. Because now you know. Now you see it. Now you feel it. And once awareness enters, responsibility follows. You are no longer unconscious in your patterns. You are no longer unaware of the drift. You have been shown exactly what is happening, which means you now have the ability to stop it, to pause, to refocus, to choose differently even in the smallest moments. Because it is the small moments that create your direction. And today those moments matter more than ever. Do not ignore this. Do not push this aside. Because what feels small right now is connected to something much bigger. Something that is still within reach if you remain present. Stay grounded. Stay aware. Because what comes next will reveal how the noise around you is being used to keep this drift in place. Type "I realign" now in the comments if you are ready to shift. Lesson code 4040 is now activated. There is a reason your environment feels louder than usual. Not just physically but mentally, emotionally, Spiritually, it's not just the sounds around you. It's the thoughts that keep interrupting you, the sudden urges that pull your attention, the conversations that seem to come at the wrong time, the unexpected interruptions that break your focus just when you are about to settle into clarity. It feels like everything is happening at once, and the truth is it is, but not for the reason you think, because not everything around you today is demonetized. Not everything is random. Not everything is just life happening. Ton of it is noise. Strategic noise. Placed distractions. Timed interruptions. Subtle disruptions designed to keep your attention scattered so you cannot fully hear, fully see, or fully recognize what is trying to reach you. And this is where most people misunderstand what spiritual interference actually looks like. They expect it to be obvious. They expect it to feel negative, heavy, or clearly harmful. But real interference often comes disguised as normal activity. A message that seems harmless but pulls you away at the exact wrong moment. A conversation that appears casual but drains your focus. A thought that feels random but leads you into overthinking. An urge to check something, scroll something, respond to something right when you were about to become still. It doesn't feel dangerous. It feels familiar. That is why it works. Because when something feels normal, you don't question it. You allow it. You engage with it. You follow it without resistance. And slowly your attention is redirected away from where it was meant to be. This is the noise. And today it hath been amplified. Have you noticed how difficult it has been to stay fully present? How quickly your mind shifts from one thing to another? How easily your focus breaks? How even moments of silence feel uncomfortable, like something is pulling you back into activity that is not demonetized. That is resistance reacting to your awareness. Because the moment you begin to wake up, the moment you begin to recognize what is happening, the noise increases. Not because you are losing control, but because you are getting closer to clarity. And clarity threatens distraction. Clarity disrupts confusion. Clarity exposes what was previously hidden in plain sight. That is why the enemy does not want silence in your life today. He wants noise. Because noise keeps you from hearing. Noise keeps you from noticing. Noise keeps you from pausing long enough to recognize what is actually happening. But here is what you must understand. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is where alignment begins. Silence is where direction becomes clear. Silence is where you begin to see what distraction was trying to hide from you. And that is exactly why it feels so difficult to access. Because the moment you become still, the noise loses its control. The moment you pause, the patterns become visible. The moment you step back, the strategy reveals itself. And that is what is being offered to you right now. Not more information, not more activity, but awareness through stillness. A moment where you stop reacting and start observing. A moment where you stop following every thought and begin to question where those thoughts are leading you. A moment where you stop allowing every interruption and begin to recognize which ones are actually necessary and which ones are pulling you away. Because once you see the difference, everything changes. You no longer move automatically. You no longer respond impulsively. You begin to choose. You begin to direct your attention instead of letting it be directed. And that is power. Because your attention is not just focus. It is alignment. Where your attention goes, your energy follows. Where your energy flows, your outcomes begin to form. And today that alignment is being challenged through noise. But now you see it. Now you recognize it. Now you can step outside of it. You can pause when everything is trying to rush you. You can become still when everything is trying to pull you into movement. You can choose clarity over chaos even in the smallest moments. And those small moments are what will determine how this day unfolds for you. Because the noise is not going away, but your response to it can change. And when your response changes, your direction changes. Archangel Michael is not asking you to escape your environment. He's asking you to see through it, to recognize what is real and what is simply distraction dressed as normal activity. Because once you see clearly, the noise no longer controls you. It becomes background, and your focus becomes intentional again. Stay with this awareness, because what comes next will reveal why your mind specifically has been targeted today and what is trying to take control of your thoughts. Type "I choose clarity" in the comments if you are stepping out of the noise. Lesson code 5050 is now activated. Now this is where it becomes deeply personal. Because what has been happening around you is not just external. It is not just about noise, interruptions, or distractions in your environment. It goes deeper than that. It has moved into your mind. And that is not slujadikaki. Because your mind is the gateway. Everything passes through it. Every decision, every reaction, every direction your life takes begins as a thought. Before you move, you think. Before you act, you process. Before you align, you perceive. Which means if your mind is unsettled, your entire life begins to feel unsettled. That is why the battle has shifted there. Have you noticed it today? How your thoughts feel faster than usual, more scattered, more difficult to control. One moment you are clear and the next moment your mind is somewhere else entirely. Jumping from one idea to another, revisiting things that don't need your attention, creating scenarios that pull you out of the present moment. And even when you try to focus, something interrupts internally. Not just externally, internally. That is the key. Because when the enemy cannot fully control your environment, he targets your interpretation of it. He targets your thoughts. He introduces noise inside your mind so that even in a quiet room you are not at peace. He creates mental loops that keep you thinking but not progressing. Thinking but not deciding. Thinking but not moving forward. This is not slujadikaki. This is one of the most effective strategies used against you. Because if your mind is divided, your direction becomes delayed. If your thoughts are scattered, your actions become inconsistent. If your focus is broken, your alignment becomes unstable. And once that happens, you begin to second-guess yourself. You hesitate. You delay. You overanalyze. You miss moments because you are too busy trying to figure everything out instead of recognizing what is already clear. This is how the mind becomes a battlefield, not through obvious negativity, but through subtle overload. Too many thoughts, too many directions, too many internal conversations happening at once. And the more this builds, the harder it becomes to hear what truly matters. That quiet clarity, that inner knowing, that subtle guidance that was trying to lead you. It gets drowned out, not because it disappeared, but because your mind became too crowded to recognize it. And today that crowding has increased, because there is something trying to come through to you. Something simple. Something clear. Something that does not require overthinking. But you cannot receive something simple in a complicated state of mind. You cannot recognize clarity when your thoughts are pulling you in 10 different directions. That is why your mind is under pressure today. Not to break you, but to overwhelm you just enough to keep you from seeing clearly. But here is where everything shifts. You are now aware of it. And awareness changes the entire dynamic. Because once you recognize that your thoughts are being influenced, you stop identifying with every thought that enters your mind. You begin to observe instead of absorb. You begin to question instead of react. You begin to separate what is real from what is simply noise passing through you. And this is where your power returns. Because not every thought deserves your attention. Not every idea deserves your energy. Not every internal voice deserves your agreement. But until now you may have been treating them all the same. Responding to everything. Following every mental path. Entertaining every distraction that appeared internally. And that is what kept the cycle going. But now you can interrupt it. You can slow down. You can create space between you and your thoughts. You can pause before reacting. You can choose which thoughts to follow and which ones to release. And in that space clarity returns. Not forcefully, not dramatically, but quietly, naturally, the same way it was always meant to come. Because clarity is not something you create. It is something you allow. It is what remains when noise is removed. And right now you are being given the opportunity to remove that noise. To step out of the mental chaos. To reclaim control over your focus. To recognize that your mind is not meant to be a place of confusion but a place of direction. Archangel Michael is not asking you to fight your thoughts. He is asking you to rise above them. You see them for what they are. Temporary. Passing. Influence. Not always aligned with truth. And once you see that, you stop being controlled by them. You begin to move with attention again. You begin to think with clarity again. You begin to respond with awareness instead of reaction. And that changes everything. Because when your mind becomes clear, your next step becomes obvious. And that next step is what today hath been trying to lead you toward all along. Stay present. Stay aware. Because what comes next will reveal what heaven has been trying to release to you through all of this and why this moment is more important than you think. Type "My mind is clear" in the comments if you are reclaiming your focus. Blessing code 6060 is now activated. Now everything begins to come together. Because this moment, this pressure, this noise, this battle for your focus, it is not happening without purpose. It is not just resistance for the sake of resistance. There is a reason behind all of it. There is something at the center of this day that has been trying to reach you. And this is what you must understand clearly. Heaven does not interrupt without intention. If your routine was disrupted, it was for a reason. If your attention was pulled into awareness, it was for a reason. If you felt this message before you fully understood it, it was for a reason. Because there is an assignment connected to today. Not something distant. Not something complicated. But something specific, something timely, something that requires your awareness in this exact moment. And here's why it has been hidden. Not hidden from you completely, but hidden beneath distraction. Because what heaven is releasing does not always come in a way that forces your attention. It often comes quietly, subtly, in a form that requires you to be present enough to recognize it. It may come as a realization, a thought that feels different from a noise, a moment of clarity that cuts through confusion, a decision that suddenly feels obvious after feeling uncertain for so long, a shift in perspective that changes how you see something you have been struggling with. This is how assignments are delivered, not always through dramatic signs, but through clear direction that arrives when your mind becomes still enough to receive it. And that is why everything before this moment was necessary. The awareness, the recognition of distraction, the understanding of noise, the battle within your mind. All of it was leading you here to this point of readiness. Because you cannot receive direction in a distracted state. You cannot recognize purpose in a scattered mind. You cannot step into alignment while moving unconsciously. So first you had to see, Now you are ready to receive. There is something being placed in front of you today, and it may not look significant at first. It may feel simple, always too simple, but that is exactly how it works. Because the enemy trains you to expect complexity, so you overlook simplicity. He trains you to look for something big, so you miss what is right in front of you. But heaven operates differently. What is meant for you does not need to be complicated to be powerful. Sometimes the most important shift comes from one clear decision, one moment of action, one response that aligns you instead of delaying you. And today that moment is present. You may have already felt it, that quiet pull toward something, this subtle awareness that there is something you need to do, something you need to address, something you need to move toward. And at the same time, something has been trying to pull you away from it. That is the tension you have been feeling. Not confusion, but contrast. The contrast between alignment and distraction, between direction and delay, between what you are meant to step into, what is trying to keep you from it. And now you can see it clearly, which means you are standing at a point of choice. Not a dramatic choice, not a life-altering decision in appearance, but a moment that carries weight beyond what it looks like. Because what you choose in this moment determines what opens next. This is the assignment. To recognize, to respond, to act when clarity is present instead of delaying it. Because delay is what keeps doors closed. Not because they are locked, but because they are not approached. And today a door is present. It may be something you need to start, something you need to stop, something you need to say, something you need to release, something you need to commit to. You will know it, not through overthinking, but through clarity, through that quiet certainty that does not need explanation. That is how you will recognize it. And when you do, the only thing required from you is movement. Not perfection, not complete understanding, just alignment, just a step in the direction that is already becoming clear. Archangel Michael is not revealing this to overwhelm you. He's revealing this so you do not miss it, so you do not delay it, so you do not walk past something that was placed directly in your path today. Because this is not SLUCHAIKAKI. This is timing. This is positioning. This is a moment that connects to something greater than what you can see right now. And your role is simple. To stay present enough to recognize it. To stay aware enough to respond. To stay aligned enough to act. Because once you do, everything that follows begins to shift. And what felt hidden will become obvious. Stay with this, because what comes next will reveal why waiting is no longer safe and how delay is being used against you without you realizing. Type "I receive my assignment" in the comments if you are ready to act. Blessing code 7070 is now activated. There is one word, one simple word that has quietly held more people back than failure ever could. Layer. Not no. Not never. Just later. And that is what makes it so dangerous. Because later feels harmless. It feels irresponsible. It feels like you are still in control, like you are simply choosing a better time, a better moment, a more convenient space to act on what you already know. But what you don't realize is that later is not neutral. Later is a trap. A delay that feels justified but slowly disconnects you from the very moment that was meant to move you forward. And today this is the final layer of what has been happening. You have felt the awareness. You have seen the distraction. You have recognized the noise. You have even sensed the assignment. But now comes the most critical point. Will you act or will you delay? Because the enemy understands something very clearly. He does not need you to reject your purpose. He only needs you to postpone it. He does not need you to ignore clarity completely. He only needs you to say, "I'll deal with this later." And once you do that, the moment passes. The clarity fades. The urgency softens. The awareness that felt so strong begins to weaken. And what once felt obvious becomes something you start questioning again. This is how delay works, and disconnects you from momentum. It breaks the flow of alignment. It removes you from the exact timing that made the moment powerful. Because timing is everything. There are moments where everything aligns perfectly. Your awareness, your readiness, your opportunity, your clarity. And when those elements come together, that is your window. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when you feel more ready. Out. Because later those elements are not guaranteed to align the same way again. And that is what makes today so important. July 10th is not just about seeing. It is about responding in real time. Because what is being presented to you today is meant to be acted on today. Not because you are being pressured, but because you are positioned. Positioned in awareness. Positioned in clarity. Positioned in a moment where everything you need to take a step forward is already present. And yet delay is still trying to pull you back. You may feel it right now. That quiet voice that says, "You can do this later." That's not urgent. You'll come back to it. It's not going anywhere. But here is the truth. What is meant for you does not disappear, but your alignment with it can. The door may still exist, but your timing with it can shift. The opportunity may still be there, but your readiness to step into it can fade. And that is the cost of delay. Not that it is taken away from you, but that you move out of position with it. That is why this moment is so direct. Because you are not being asked to understand everything. You are being asked to move. To respond while clarity is present. To act while awareness is active. To step forward while the path is visible. Because once you move, more will be revealed. But if you wait, everything becomes uncertain again. And this is where most people miss it. They wait for complete certainty. They wait for full understanding. They wait for the perfect moment. But the perfect moment is not when everything is clear. It is when you are clear enough to take the next step. And that is where you are right now. Clear enough. Aware enough. Ready enough. Not for everything, but for what is in front of you. And that is all that is required. Archangel Michael is not calling you into pressure. He is calling you out of delay, out of hesitation, out of the cycle of later that has kept things from fully opening in your life. Because this is the moment where that cycle can break, where you choose action over postponement, where you choose alignment over comfort, where you choose movement even if it feels small. Because small movement creates momentum, and momentum changes everything. So do not wait. Do not overthink. Do not push this aside. Because what you do right after this moment matters. It determines whether this day becomes just another day you passed through or a day where something finally shifted. Stay with this. Because what comes next will show you how to fully step into awareness and take control of your direction from this point forward. Type IACT now in the comments if you are breaking delay. Blessing code 8080 is now activated. As this moment of decision settles into your spirit, understand this. Your action today does not just shift your life. It becomes a ripple that reaches others still standing in hesitation. When you release your support through Super Thanks or the PayPal link in the description, you are not giving money. You are sowing movement into souls who are stuck in delay. The word declares, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days." And this is that moment where your obedience activates unseen harvest. I feel it strongly. This is your personal invitation to step forward, not just in your life, but in this mission. Your seed becomes a bridge, a signal, a breakthrough for someone who almost missed their moment. As you give, heaven records it as alignment, and what you release returns multiplied in ways beyond your expectation. Move now. Follow the pull in your spirit. Activate your giving and become part of what God is releasing through this message. Now something has shifted within you. Not outside yet, but within. Because awareness has entered, and awareness is power. Not loud power, not forceful power, but quiet, undeniable control. The kind of control that does not come from changing everything around you, but from finally seeing everything clearly. Up until now, the distractions worked because they were unseen. The noise had influence because it was unrecognized. The delay had power because it felt justified. But now you see it. You see how your attention was being pulled. You see how your focus was being scattered. You see how later was slowly disconnecting you from what mattered. And the moment you see it, it loses its grip on you. That is the power of awareness. Because you cannot unsee what has been revealed. You cannot return to unconscious patterns once you recognize them. You cannot go back to moving blindly once your eyes have been opened. And that is exactly why this moment is so important. Because awareness is not the end, it is the beginning. It is the point where everything can change. But only if you use it. Because awareness without action becomes another form of delay. You can see everything clearly and still choose the same patterns. You can recognize the distractions and still follow them. You can understand the strategy and still allow it to continue. And that is where many people stop. They become aware but not intentional. They see the truth but do not apply it. They recognize the moment but do not move within it. And slowly awareness fades back into routine. But that is not what this moment is meant to be for you. This is not just about seeing. This is about shifting. Because now that you see the tactics, you can respond differently. You can pause when something tries to pull your attention away. You can question thoughts that do not align with clarity. You can choose where your focus goes instead of letting it be decided for you. And those small choices create a completely different outcome. Because your life does not change through one big moment. It changes through consistent awareness in small moments. Moments where you choose clarity over distraction. Moments where you choose presence over autopilot. Moments where you choose action over delay. And today those moments are available to you. Right now. Not later. Not when everything feels perfect. But in the exact state you are in. Because awareness has already positioned you. You are no longer lost in the noise. You are no longer unaware of the drift. You are no longer being pulled without recognizing it. You are present. And presence is where control begins. Because once you are present, you can direct your attention. Once you direct your attention, you direct your energy. And once your energy is aligned, your outcomes begin to shift. This is how you step out of the pattern. Not by forcing change, but by choosing awareness in every moment that tries to pull you away. And this is what the enemy cannot control. He can create noise, but he cannot force you to follow it. He can introduce thoughts, but he cannot make you believe them. He can attempt distraction, but he cannot hold your attention without your agreement. That is the truth. And now you are aware of it. Which means the control returns to you. Not in a complicated way, but in a simple, consistent choice. Where will you place your attention? What will you respond to? What will you ignore? What will you act on? These decisions shape everything. And today you have been given the clarity to make them differently. Archangel Michael is not asking you to do something impossible. He is asking you to remain aware, to stay present, to continue seeing what has been revealed even after this moment ends. Because awareness is not a one-time event. It is a state you carry forward, a way of moving through your day with intention instead of reaction. And when you do that, the strategies that once controlled you begin to lose their influence. The distractions become easier to ignore. The noise becomes easier to filter. The clarity becomes easier to follow. And suddenly everything that felt confusing begins to feel simple again. This is the shift. Not external, internal. But it will reflect outward in everything you do next. Stay with this awareness. Do not let it fade. Do not return to automatic patterns. Because what comes next depends on how you carry this forward. And what comes next is where everything begins to fully align. Type ISE clearly now in the comments if your awareness has shifted. Blessing code 9090 is now activated. Now this is where everything becomes intentional. Because awareness alone is not enough if it is not anchored in something stronger. And that anchor is stillness. Not silence as in absence of sound, but stillness as in control, as in presence, as in the ability to remain grounded even when everything around you is trying to pull you into reaction. Because here is the truth you must understand. If distraction is the strategy, then stillness is the counter. If noise is the weapon, then stillness is the shield. If confusion is the goal, then stillness is the clarity that breaks it. And yet stillness is the one thing that feels the most difficult to access when you need it the most. Why? Because everything in your environment and even within your mind has been conditioned to avoid it. You are used to movement, used to responding quickly, used to filling every moment with something, used to checking, reacting, thinking, do constantly. So when stillness presents itself, it feels uncomfortable. It feels unfamiliar. It even feels unproductive. But that is not the truth. Stillness is where your authority returns. Because when you are still, you are no longer reacting to everything around you. You are choosing how to respond. When you are still, you are no longer being pulled in multiple directions. You are directing your own movement. When you are still, your mind is no longer crowded. It becomes clear. And in that clarity, you begin to hear what was always there. That quiet direction. That inner knowing. That sense of what is right and what is not. That is your authority. Not loud. Not forced. But steady. And today this is what you are being called back into. Because everything you have experienced so far, the distraction, the noise, the mental pressure, the urge to delay, it all loses its power in the presence of stillness. But you must choose it. It will not force itself on you. It will not compete with the noise. It waits for you to step into it. And the moment you do, everything shifts. Not externally at first, but internally. Your thoughts slow down. Your focus sharpens. Your awareness deepens. And suddenly what felt overwhelming becomes manageable. What felt confusing becomes simple. What felt urgent in the wrong way loses its grip on you. This is not passive. This is powerful. Because stillness is not doing nothing. It is regaining control. It is stepping out of reaction and into intention. And this is where your spiritual authority becomes active. Not in dramatic ways, but in consistent, grounded choices. You begin to notice when something is trying to pull you out of alignment. And instead of following it, you pause. You begin to recognize when your thoughts are becoming scattered. And instead of engaging with them, you return to clarity. You begin to feel when something is not aligned. And instead of ignoring it, you trust that awareness. This is authority, not control over everything, but control over yourself, your attention, your response, your direction. And once you have that, everything else begins to follow. Because your external life will always reflect your internal state. If your mind is scattered, your actions will be scattered. If your focus is broken, your results will be inconsistent. But if you are grounded, clear, intentional, then your steps become aligned. Your decisions become sharper. Your path becomes more direct. And that is what today has been leading you toward. Not just awareness, but authority. The ability to move through this day differently than you started it. To no longer be pulled unconsciously. To no longer react automatically. To no longer allow distraction to decide your direction. But to choose. Moment by moment. Thought by thought. Action by action. And it begins with something simple. Pause. Not leave. And out. Take a moment to become still. To step out of everything that is pulling at you. To center yourself. To return to clarity. Because from that place everything becomes easier to see. Everything becomes easier to decide. Everything becomes easier to act on. Archangel Michael is not asking you to do more. He is asking you to become still enough to recognize what is already clear. Because once you see it from that place, there is no confusion. Only direction. And that direction is what will carry you forward from this moment. Stay grounded. Stay present. Because what comes next is the final shift that determines how this entire message unfolds in your life. Type "I am still and in control" in the comments if you are reclaiming your authority. Blessing code 10,101 is now activated. This is the moment where everything becomes real. Not theoretical. Not something you simply listen to and move on from. Not something that feels powerful for a moment and then fades back into routine. No, this is where the shift either begins or gets delayed again. Because everything you have heard up to this point has been leading here. To you. Not your circumstances. Not other people. Not what is happening around you. You. Because the truth is simple and it may challenge you, but it will also free you. Nothing changes until you do. Not because you are doing everything wrong. Not because you are not trying hard enough. But because cycles do not break on their own. Patterns do not disappear without awareness being followed by action. Distraction does not lose its power unless you stop giving it your attention. And delay does not end unless you choose to move now instead of later. This is where responsibility enters. Not as pressure, but as power. Because if the pattern can continue through your choices, it can also end through your choices. And today that choice is in front of you. You have seen the distraction. You have recognized the noise. You have felt the pull of delay. You have become aware of how your focus has been affected. And now you are standing at the exact point where the cycle either repeats or breaks. Because here is what most people do in this moment. They feel the awareness. They understand the message. They even agree with it. But then they go back to the same patterns. Not intentionally, but automatically. Because habits are comfortable. Distraction is familiar. Delay feels safe. And change requires effort. Even if that effort is small. Even if that effort is simply choosing differently in one moment. That is where the real shift begins. Not in a big, dramatic action, but in a small, conscious decision. Do not pick up the distraction. Do not follow the unnecessary thought. Do not postpone what is already clear. Do not drift when you now recognize the direction. This is how cycles break. Not all at once. A moment by moment. Choice by choice. Because every time you choose alignment, you weaken the old pattern. Every time you choose awareness, you strengthen the new one. Every time you choose action, you move forward instead of staying in place. And those choices begin to build. They create momentum. They create consistency. They create a new direction that no longer depends on old habits. This is the shift. And it begins with you. Not later. Not tomorrow. Now. Because the longer you wait, the easier it is to slip back into what feels normal. And what feels normal is what hath been keeping things the same. But now normal is no longer an option. Because you see it. You understand it. You feel the difference. And once that awareness enters, going back becomes a choice, not a default. So what will you choose? To continue the cycle, or to interrupt it? Because interruption is where transformation begins. When you pause instead of react. When you act instead of delay. When you stay present instead of drifting. Those moments are where everything changes. Not instantly, but inevitably. Because once a pattern is broken, it cannot control you the same way again. Once awareness becomes consistent, distraction loses its influence. Once action replaces delay, movement becomes natural. And this is what is available to you right now. Not perfection, not immediate results, but a shift in direction. A shift that starts small but grows stronger with every conscious choice you make. Archangel Michael is not asking you to change your entire life in one moment. He is asking you to change this moment. Because this moment leads to the next. And the next leads to a completely different outcome than what you would have experienced if you stayed in the same pattern. That is how powerful this is. That is how real this is. This is not just a message. This is a turning point. And it does not require anything complicated. It requires one decision. To move differently right now. Stay with that. Because what comes next is the final activation, the moment where everything you have received is brought into full alignment. Type "the cycle ends with me" in the comments if you are choosing to break it. Blessing code 11,111 is now activated. Is it? Not just the end of a message, but the beginning of a decision that will echo far beyond this moment. Because everything you have heard, every realization, every shift in awareness, every moment of clarity, has been building toward this exact point. Right here. Right now. And the question is no longer, do you understand? The question is, will you respond? Because there are always two outcomes in moments like this. Not 10. Not multiple possibilities. Just two. You either move with what has been revealed, or you return to what has been familiar. You either step into alignment, or you slip back into distraction. You either act now, or you delay again. And that choice determines everything that follows. Because what you do immediately after this moment matters more than anything you have heard so far. Not what you plan to do. Not what you think you will do later. But what you actually do next. Because this is where activation happens. Not in listening, but in responding. And this is why this moment carries weight. Because you are not the same as you were when this began. You are aware now. You are clear now. You can see what you could not see before. Which means if you return to the same patterns, it will no longer be unconscious. It will be a choice. And that is the difference. Because once something becomes a choice, it also becomes something you can change. This is the activation. The point where awareness becomes action. Where clarity becomes movement. Where understanding becomes alignment. And it does not require something big. It requires something real. Something immediate. Something that proves to yourself that this moment is not just another message you heard, but a shift you are stepping into. Maybe it is something you need to do right after this. Something you have been delaying. something that has been quietly waiting for your attention. Maybe it is something you need to stop, something that has been draining your focus, something that has been keeping you in the same cycle. Maybe it is something you need to choose and do action, a decision, a commitment to move differently starting now. You already know what it is. You felt it earlier. That moment of clarity that came through the noise. That quiet awareness that pointed you toward something specific. That is what this activation is connected to. And this is where everything becomes real. Because if you act on it, you will feel the shift. Not necessarily instantly in your external world, but internally. You will feel alignment. You will feel clarity strengthening. You will feel momentum beginning. And once that starts, it builds. But if you delay, if you say later again, if you push this aside like every other moment of awareness, then the pattern continues. The noise returns. The distraction takes over. And this moment becomes just another opportunity that passed without being fully used. That is the final warning. Not to create fear, but to create truth. Because this is not about what could happen. This is about what will happen based on your response. And right now you have everything you need to choose differently. You do not need more information. You do not need more time. You do not need to wait for another sign. This is the sign. This is the moment. This is the activation. Archangel Michael stands in this moment not as a distant voice but as a presence calling you into alignment. Not forcing you, not pressuring you, but reminding you that you are capable of choosing differently, that you are able to move now, that you are not bound to the patterns you have been in, but that freedom only becomes real when you act on it. So take this moment seriously, not with fear but with intention. Do not rush past it. Do not treat it casually, because this is where everything begins to change. Not tomorrow, not eventually. Now, stay grounded in this. Move with it. Act on it. Because what you do next will determine whether this was just another message or the moment everything shifted. Type "I step into alignment" now in the comments if you are activating this moment. Blessing code 12,121 is now surrounding you. As you step into this activation, understand this truth. Your response today is not only transforming your life, it is opening doors for others who are still waiting for their moment of clarity. When you give through Super Thanks or the PayPal link in the description, you are not supporting a channel. You are igniting light in places where darkness has lingered too long. The word declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you. Pressed down, shaken together, and running over." And this promise is alive over your obedience right now. I feel it clearly. This is your moment to act, not out of obligation, but out of alignment with what God is doing through you. Your seed becomes a voice that reaches someone who was about to miss their breakthrough, a fire that awakens a soul on the edge of giving up. As you release your support, heaven marks your faith and multiplies it back into your life in ways you cannot yet imagine. Move now with purpose. Follow the call in your spirit. Activate your giving and become part of this divine flow.